Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Joel Elston here. Today is Thursday, December the 27th, 2018. It's 8 a.m. New York time, 5 a.m. Los Angeles, 1 p.m. in London, and in Sydney, Australia, it's 12 midnight. Wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for yet another episode of LOA Today. And for those of you who celebrate Christmas, we hope you had a wonderful Christmas holiday. And Joel, I can tell from the photos you posted to Facebook, you and your son had a terrific holiday. At least your son was just going nuts after this holiday. He had so many toys to play with, it was crazy.
Yeah, we had a really good Christmas. I was glad to be able to have him, enjoy it and have a lot of great stuff to play with. And to me, that's sort of the point of all of life, is not necessarily to get things, but to be able to be in a position to enjoy life. And
absolutely.
And really, all year you work and you go towards something. And so, not that it's the end of anything, but to me, the Christmas sort of represents the end of this year and getting into the new year, and it has a lot of other connotations attached to it. So we had a great Christmas on many levels, and this has been an incredible year overall.
Of course, when you're a kid, it's a little bit of a different perspective. I recall something I saw on Facebook a couple of days ago, I think it was on Christmas, where father and son conversation, kind of like the ones that you often post about, where the son says to the father, "I wonder what Santa Claus is going to get me for Christmas." And the father says, "Well, it's much better to give than it is to receive." And the boy says, "Okay, I wonder what Santa Claus is going to give me for Christmas." It's all perspective, right?
It is, and it's one of the things that I have everything that I want or need in the world. I'm impossible to pay for when it comes to holidays, I don't look at I don't even base it on what I get or even see what I get. But what my son bought me for Christmas, he bought me a set of, and to me it's more about understanding my world. He bought me a pair of weightlifting gloves. Well, that's a great gift.
Yeah.
I go through several pair of weightlifting gloves a year. I'm in the gym every day. So to me, that excites me because it isn't the cost of the gift. It's the fact that he truly, in my mind, just understands what my life is about. So those weightlifting gloves, to me, he identifies what's important in my world. And that means a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree completely. And in fact, Louise and I had an experience with this Christmas that showed us a side of the giving side, or I guess in this case, actually, it was also the receiving side of Christmas that was more meaningful than anything in many, many years. I've been hinting at the fact for the last few months that Louise has been dealing with medical issues, and I keep saying over and over again, I'm not ready to tell the story. I'm not ready to tell the story. But I'm ready to tell the story. So we're going to tell a little story today about what's been going on with Louise's health issues. It's hard to figure out exactly where this starts, but we've been starting in September, so I'll start in September. In September, of course, the guarding service business that Louise runs was going full tilt. We have, at that point, around 10 employees working for us, and it's pretty busy. It's kind of crazy. And she was really wearing down a lot. I mean, she was having trouble getting through days. And by October, we shut down the business at the end of October every year. By October, she was really dragging badly. Literally, we practically crashed into the end of the season. She was having such a hard time. But we figured, well, it's the end of the season, so she can rest and recuperate and feel better. And so that was the plan we went with. And first week after we closed the business down for the year, she just slept the entire time. She didn't have energy to do anything. Second week, she pretty much just slept all the time. Even when she was awake, she couldn't do anything. By the third week, she was actually getting worse, which was really kind of scaring us, to say the least. And because she was getting worse, and we don't tend to do a lot of work with doctors, but that's the time where, you have to go see a doctor. You have to find out what's going on. So we did. We went into a local urgent care type facility, a walk-in 24-hour type facility, and actually not 24-hour. But anyway, we walked in there and got her checked out, and we got our first really big scare as a result of that. Because while They took her vital signs, blood pressure, pulse, all the kind of stuff that they can take quickly. And then they took like a complete history of what was going on, what symptoms she'd been experiencing. And among the symptoms she had experienced was an internal tremor, a shaking inside, which cued something in both of the back of our minds, because my father had passed, and I've talked about this before, he had passed from symptoms related to Parkinson's disease. That's actually ultimately what killed him. And in Parkinson's, you have this major tremor that goes on. And so we're thinking, oh my God, does Louise have Parkinson's disease? Well, we weren't ready to buy into that. No, let's go through the medical procedures and so forth. Well, the physician's assistant who takes all the vitals in this particular urgent care facility said, I'm kind of thinking this might be Parkinson's disease, which was really, really stupid of her to say. Just wrong. You don't do that. But it was enough to scare the daylights out of us. So the next 2 days were absolute hell, because I'm thinking, I saw what happened with my dad. I'm thinking the same thing's going to happen to my wife. And of course, she's, frightened by the whole prospect too. One of the things that came out of it, though, and I thought a lot about you when we were going through this, Joel, is I realized we were at one of those, I'll call them a springboard place in our lives. You had a few springboards, particularly one where you were homeless and gambling addiction and all that kind of stuff. And that springboard you've talked about many times has led you to places in your life that you could not possibly have fathomed. Well, I felt like we were at one of those springboard moments. And I decided, and I think my wife decided independently, there was no way we were going to let this be Parkinson's. There was no way we were going to let this be a debilitating disease. We were going to be healthy. And I really had this huge, passionate desire for her to be healthy. And I kind of alluded to that on some of the podcast episodes. Well, 2 days after we got that misdiagnosis, and that's what it was, we learned that the blood tests had come back, and what they actually showed was a thyroid issue. Thyroid is in your throat, the bottom of your throat. And that thyroid issue was a hyperthyroid issue. Thyroid issues apparently come in two flavors, hyper and hypo. Hyper is where it's doing too much activity and it's just setting off all these crazy signals to all of the body, because it turns out the thyroid actually touches every part of the body. It touches every system, circulatory, nervous system, endocrine system. It's like everything. Everything is touched by the thyroid, which I never knew. I don't know. Did you know that, Joel? Were you aware that the thyroid played that kind of role? You did. Okay, so you knew that.
Yeah, it's a hormone regulator, basically.
Right, exactly. So, okay, well, that was a lot better news, because we knew that's treatable. We didn't know exactly what the treatment was, but, we knew that that was the kind of thing that was treatable. And furthermore, we found out that large numbers of people have thyroid issues. I talked to one nurse over the last couple of weeks or so who said she didn't know the exact statistics, but her guess is maybe 1 out of 5 people has a thyroid issue, whether or not they're aware of it. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's huge. That's epidemic. So, again, something that they know how to treat. That made me feel better. That made Louise feel better, a little bit better anyway. So they got her started on some basic medications. And what they do is they medicate you for something to help reduce the activity of the thyroid, and they also put her on a medication to reduce her pulse rate, because her pulse rate was pretty high. And what we didn't know at the time is that there may have been another issue going on. Well, that other issue reared its ugly head on Sunday, December 23rd, at about 1 o'clock in the morning. It was Louise waking me up and saying, my heart is racing. I don't feel right at all. And so I tried to help her calm down. She couldn't calm down. So we called the emergency medical services. They came out very quickly, and they were really great, really, really helpful. And they hooked her up to a machine and so forth and said, has anyone ever talked to you about AFib? And I didn't know what it was, but she did. She's watched all these medical programs, so she knows what AFib is. AFib stands for atrial fibrillation, and it's a heartbeat that is out of rhythm. It's not a proper heartbeat. Like with a proper heartbeat, they call that sinus rhythm, as you know, Joel. And she was not in sinus rhythm. And apparently with this atrial fibrillation, what happens is the blood kind of pools in the heart. It kind of swirls around like a whirlpool and doesn't really do what it's supposed to do. So she's not getting full circulation like she's supposed to get. And that was very likely causing a lot of her fatigue and many of the other symptoms that she was experiencing. So they packed her up into an ambulance, took her to the hospital, to the emergency room. And we had quite an ordeal there, and they start pumping various kinds of medicines in her, trying to bring this AFib under control, because her pulse rate was bouncing all over the place between like 115 beats a minute and 155 beats a minute, and normal is like, somewhere between 60 and 100. It's like, whoa, oh my goodness, this is way out of control here. And it took like 3 or 4 different attempts to bring it down. They finally got it down for a short period of time into the proper range. Problem was that when you do that, there's also a risk of low blood pressure. She's a low blood pressure person anyway, so it really pushed her down into the dangerous zone. So now they had to kind of compensate for that. They're doing this balancing act, trying to get her to the right range. Well, they couldn't get her into the right range, but they stabilized her enough that they could move her to a regular hospital bed. And that's when we got the bad news. She was going to have to be in the hospital for Christmas Eve and possibly Christmas Day, which we really didn't like very much, but there was not much else to be done. So by that point, we were both pretty sleep deprived because we hadn't gotten any sleep. And we got her hooked up into the room, and it was a really nice room. Joel, this is like the best hospital room I've ever seen in my life. It was a private room. It was private. It was larger than many studio apartments. I mean, it was a good-sized room. The window was not a window in the wall. It was the entire wall. And you had this gorgeous view of the valley.
Wow.
I mean, it was really, this is like better than most 4-star hotels. This was an amazing, amazing room. In fact, you know how if a patient is in, they'll bring hospital food for you to eat. Well, they don't call it hospital food. They call it room service. Good. I was blown away by that. Yeah. They call it room service. Can you believe that? And on top of that, if you forget to call down for your meal order, they'll call you to see what would you like to have. I mean, I couldn't believe that. They're actually calling her to find out what does she want to have, like a waiter coming to your table or something like that. So, and the staff were terrific. They were really, really good staff, very, very caring and helpful, and trying to give us all the information they can give us, and so on and so forth. So we knew that she was in good hands, and that was reassuring too. Well, the big problem, of course, was she had this arrhythmia still going on, and it had to be dealt with. So they were trying they were trying different medications, and they were playing with it and so forth, trying to experiment to see what would work for her. Because it was always just a question of balancing out her hormone system in a way that her body could function normally. We had been both awake for about 36 hours. We were both tired. She couldn't go to sleep because her heartbeat was so high, but she was at least resting, so to speak. And I was practically dead to the world, so I had to go home to go to sleep. So I went home, and about 2 hours after I left, it was 10:30 on Christmas Eve, 10:30 at night, and the nurses. I don't know if what it is in all countries. In our country, they actually have it set up so there's like a little unit about this big that connects in to leads that are plugged into various parts of your body, and they can measure everything via computer, and they can see everything on a computer readout in the nurses' station. So they're watching us along with watching Louise along with all the other people in the ward, and all of a sudden Louise's heart stops. Cardiac arrest. Wow. And the nurse, who was her nurse, had been through this enough times to say, "Wait for it." And 5 seconds later, her heart restarted in normal sinus rhythm. Her body did a complete reboot. And all of a sudden, everything was working properly again. And the nurses and the assistants and so forth whooped and celebrated and clinked glasses and everything because they were so excited for her. Her nurse came in to tell her and found she was fast asleep, so left her alone. The next time that they were supposed to come in for medications and checking vitals and so forth was 1 a.m. on Christmas Day. So at 1 a.m. she went in, woke her up, and told her what had happened. Louise was so excited she couldn't even go to sleep for the rest of the night. She wanted to call me on the phone, and she knew I was asleep. I was dead to the world. There was no way I was going to be able to wake up. So she very kindly let me sleep. And she's excited. She's having food. Like, I gotta have a snack. I gotta have a party. And she's feeling energy again and so forth. So bottom line is we're calling that our Christmas miracle, because from that point on, it's like she's getting all of her energy back. Everything that she's been feeling debilitated about is now coming back. And she came back on Christmas Day. She came home Christmas Day, later on in the day. We've been out a few times since then. Yesterday, We did something that she hasn't been able to do in months. We were able to go from like store to store to store to store, and she wouldn't get fatigued after 10 minutes. It's all starting to come back. And we're realizing that she was probably in a deteriorating state for like, I don't know, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. And there were a number of fatigue symptoms she was experiencing. She just thought it was because she was getting older. Now we're beginning to think maybe it was the thyroid. Maybe she's going to get back to where she was a couple of years ago. So to me, this is like the best Christmas gift you could possibly get, and to her too. It's the best manifestation we could possibly have hoped for, and we're feeling really, really hopeful for the future. So it was not the way you want to spend Christmas, but what a great Christmas gift.
Well, and that again, where your perspective is, this needed to come to sort of a conclusion or a movement forward, and so while it's not where you want to spend Christmas, there's no better place to spend Christmas when you got the results you got.
Absolutely,
and that's what when all else fails, often the body will just take on what medical science won't be able to do. The body itself said, "I'm tired of this, and I want to." These people are messing around enough with this.
Yeah, right.
It does. I have and I almost hesitate to tell this because I don't want to give medical advice, but this is something that I've had a friend that experienced some problems similar to that, and the doctor recommended. He's a very holistic doctor. The doctor said, "Well, next time your heartbeat gets to 150, he's like, go out there and give it something to get to 150 about. Just start sprinting." And that sounded like the opposite advice of what everybody says. Well. He did that, and he pushed his heart rate up even higher, and he went out and doctor said, go try to pass out by running. And it literally sort of like it forced the heart to reset. So sometimes the idea, and again, that's not advice, that's just sort of it leads it in a different way, but at the same time, getting the body to respond, and beyond that is, I believe, the way you approached it. It went from the moment you heard tremor a while back, you went to your worst fear, which was what your dad went through.
Absolutely.
And so that's, whether or not you consciously or subconsciously implanted that to that physician's assistant or nurse, whoever needs to really work at the bedside now.
That's right.
The idea that, I think it's Parkinson's is not the thing you need to hear.
No, especially without data. She was hypothesizing without data. Like, no, you don't do that.
Right. Years ago, my mom, went into the doctor, and she was having some needed to have a scan done on her esophagus because she was having some problem swallowing. It was nothing major. But the radio or the tech that was doing the imaging basically told her, said, "Oh, well, I can't say anything, but I've seen something on your liver."
I can't say anything, but I'm going to say something.
Right. So she immediately, now my mom is convinced she's something really bad, enough to make the tech say that. So my mom tells the doctor, and the doctor says, "What?" And he said, "Oh, I wish you wouldn't have said that." And now we have to do all this other stuff. Well, it turns out that my mom had she saw her gallbladder, and she had gallstones. It wasn't causing her any pain. However, there was a gallstone that's what the girl saw. And so we had to go through the whole thing. It's not blocking the gallbladder's functioning well. There is a gallstone in there. Unless it causes problems and blocks the duct, there's no need to mess with it. But it set off a chain of events that my mom was convinced she had all this liver problems. She was sick in bed. She was, experienced symptoms of liver failure, and I'm not laughing, but it's just so.
Yeah.
The body again is convinced of that, and you fought against that. And I think that when you realize that, I went to. Ironically, this has been a little over a year or two ago. I went to I've been looking in my area for a chiropractor. I'm a big fan of chiropractic work. The problem is, from again, an opinion of mine, the problem is there's not that many really good chiropractors out there. There's a lot of practicing, but not many really get what the concept is.
Right.
So I had in North Carolina, I had a really good one. I haven't found one up here yet. So I go see this gentleman, and I have a shoulder issue. And what I was hoping to do is I need somebody who knows what they're doing to basically, get in the shoulder and sort of pop it out, so to speak, get in there. And I'm explaining that to the chiropractor. So he takes some x-rays, and I'm going, I don't need all that. And he goes, well, you have a compressed spine, and he came up with this name of it, and degenerative disc disease. I'm going, what?
Oh, jeez.
I said, no, my shoulder hurts. And he goes, no, here. And he's showing me this thing. And I go, I'm in the gym every day. I can deadlift 500 pounds.
Yeah.
I said, is it possible that my compressed spine is that I pick up 500 pounds off the ground 3 times a week? And he's like, well, there's no pain there. I have no problem. I'm sure there's some abnormalities because I'm almost 57 years old, lifting weights like I lift, but there's no problem there. But because of and I told him, I said, one reason he sent me an email, so it was great. If you have you didn't do any follow-up, and I was wondering if there's something I did. And I said, well, there is, and I'll explain it. I said, I told you in the beginning I'm a practitioner of the law of attraction. I believe in that. And to use the word that I have degenerative disc disease, when I came in there with I said, it's baffling that you would say that. And he said, I never really thought about it that way. And he said, but I've been taught to diagnose. And I go, you've been taught to give somebody a reason their back hurts to keep them coming back for 15 visits.
Whoa, very good. Very good.
Well, and so, but in reality, and he's a really nice man. And what he looked at, he saw as degenerative disc disease. And I said, how many patients at 57 years of age that you have that are deadlifting 500 pounds? I don't have anybody else in my whole practice deadlifting 500 pounds. I said, so you have no point of reference. You look at the whole picture of what someone's spine who does that looks like, correct? But yeah. I said, so see, you cause more damage. Like when that's planted in there, it causes more damage. And I'm just celebrating because I know how much of I didn't know the details, but you told me a good portion of this before.
Right.
And I've been concerned not about her health, which obviously I want to be right, but I've been concerned about what information would be given to you, which would influence her perspective of her health.
Oh yeah, and it was a challenge because we knew that some of the information we were getting was like, oh, wait a minute, it's not good, but still it had been implanted. Now we had to find a way to deal with that.
Exactly, and that's the law of attraction 101. When you implant those suggestions, they're often your worst fears. I have several families I work with, but one of the families that I'm giving a brief synopsis here, but she is a great lady. So all my families, they try so hard. And she grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and Christmas time has horrible memories to her. And her family has some issues going on, and every year at Christmas, there's one family member who's dealt with some emotional issues, some addictive issues, and has not quite been in tune with what the family has been wanting to do, and often will bring drama to. And so her fear of her childhood is played out every year differently. While she swore she would not have the Christmases she had as a child, she has brought into her orbit Christmases that she had as a child with dysfunction and arguing and sometimes literal fist fights. And
wow.
And it's just one of those things that you almost can't unplug from because and she said, because we talked about this, she said, I keep manifesting what I don't want. And she said, I'm trying to figure out how to use that same technique to manifest what I do want.
Right.
I said, but if your focus is solely about, I don't want the childhood that I had every Christmas, I don't want the Christmas I had every year of my childhood. If that's your focus, instead of what do you really want, you want a drama-free Christmas. You don't participate with people who. So we worked on that this year, and while it wasn't perfect, it was better than it had been before. But every year she has brought about what she fears most, and your big fear has been because you watched your father, and what a brutal condition that is. You feel helpless as a family member to watch it unfold.
Absolutely.
And so the person you love most in the world is, the moment you hear tremor, you're like, oh, clearly I'm about to have to witness this with my wife as I did with my dad. Well, that's not even remotely true.
No.
But that was what was put there.
Right.
And so glad that you are in this practice because you knew your challenge wasn't Parkinson's. Your challenge was your thought of Parkinson's.
Exactly. And it was helpful that it was my loved one, my dearest, most cherished person in the world. Because you know how often we talk about trying to get into that passionate place, to get that good feeling going that you want to get going? I didn't have any trouble generating any passion. I mean, it was through the roof. It was really fast. It was really high level, and I recognized it. That was the best part. I recognized it because of what I've trained myself to do, with your help and with my other co-hosts and so forth. What I've learned through everything we've talked about here on the show, and I knew I had to get into that mind space that said Louise is going to be healthy. Louise is going to be healthy, and I had to really believe it. It was so nice actually to have that surge of passion because it made that part so easy. The feeling part was easy as cake. And it kind of surprised me in one sense. In another sense, it didn't because I knew, of course, I'm going to feel passionate about it. But I was really very grateful for how easily I was able to just get into that place of, by God, Louise is going to be healthy. I don't know how it's going to happen, but she's going to be even healthier than she was before. I even said that. Even before how it was all going to play out, I was just thinking to myself, she's going to be healthier than she was before. She's going to be like her old self. And I just kept playing that memory in my mind. One of the ways that I did that is we took a trip to Seattle about 14, 15 years ago, something like that. And we have some photos of it that's in a little board, little display frame on the wall. And I just went over to that display frame and looked at this one picture of the two of us. We're smiling, we're happy, we're feeling really good. And I kept focusing on that photo as my way to visualize her being healthy and happy. And I just stuck with it. I didn't have a whole lot of time, but I think it was maybe, 10, 15 minutes, something like that. And then periodically throughout the day, 10 seconds here, 15 seconds there, that kind of thing. But within 48 hours of starting that process, that's when we got the news about the blood work. That's when the whole thing turned around. And that's when we got put on this path that led a couple weeks later, 3 weeks later, to this event on Christmas where her heart does a restart and all of a sudden she's improving in a massive way. So, yeah, I'm very grateful. It is incredible. It is. I mean, I'm still blown away by it.
Well, and I'm a massive believer in the body healing itself and the body having systems in place to heal itself. And, when she got worn down from work and all the stuff that was going on, it was all cumulative, and eventually the body got to a point of reset. And,
right.
And, Dr. Joe DiPenzia has a book called Placebo, which is one of my favorite books. His meditations in the book, a lot of people use those. I find them a little too long and too slow. But overall, the concept of what he's talking about is we do heal ourselves. We have that ability. There is not a chemical made by any pharmacological company or anybody that makes any medicine that is not already being made or capable of being made in your body.
Right.
It's a fact. And so your body has systems and rhythms in place. Now, they get out of alignment. They get out of, and they truly can go, sideways. I happen to believe this, and I read this, and I wish I remember where I read it, that at some point in our lives, all of us at some point have some form of a cancer in our body that our body's immune system defeats. Cancer grows when the immune system is unable to fight it or what have you, but it isn't that we don't, it's already there. It just gets its butt kicked by our immune system, and it doesn't ever have a chance to grow. So I am so pleased that, and once you empower yourself with that, I was looking the other day about the health insurance process, and I know you recently had posted that. I'm going to be 57 years old. My insurance for myself alone is around $800 a month this year. And in the last 3 years, the entire amount of money that I spent on medical-related issues is $5. And that's in the last 3 years. And the $5 was a copay for eye drops for had conjunctivitis in my eye. And so all my friends are doctors, so I got a script for a cheap eye drop, and I pay $5 out of pocket. So my insurance company paid the difference between it was $5 and the cost of the eye drop, which I think was $7 for them. So with paying all that money and doing it's frustrating to look at it and say, no, I'm spending all this money and I don't need it. I don't. You know, I have health insurance. It's the law. You have health insurance. That's why I have health insurance. But my greatest health insurance is my belief in my health. It is the tangible of my health. I don't get the flu. I don't do those things. But I do get a cold. It seems like it's in and out in a day or two. I don't give it any power. I'm in the gym. I don't slow down. I just expect my body to be healthy. That's what I'm anticipating. When that falls apart is when I find myself feeling bad, if I allow myself for that process to fall apart. Mm-hmm. And you're a living example, Louise, a living example of how that perspective and how the body can it's as much as you want it to be. That it is, and that really drives a lot of people crazy. So you're saying, and you'll hear somebody listen. So you're saying my cancer is my problem.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm not blaming anybody for anything. I'm letting you know that the systems in place are failing. You don't know why the systems in your body is failing, but I'm letting you know that it's not normal to have cancer. If you have cancer, that's because your systems are failing. And for our medicine, instead of often looking at why the system failed, it just says, well, let's just fix the cancer. I'm not saying you don't fix the cancer, but I think it's equally as important to understand why it failed. Why did we develop it in the first place?
Mm. Absolutely, I agree with you. And in fact, you mentioned health insurance. It made me realize that there was another part of the story that I forgot to mention. And it was a fairly important part of the story. I have mentioned in the past that the gardening business was very successful this year in one sense, but it was not successful in another sense. It was successful in the sense we had more sales than ever before. It was not successful in the sense that despite all those sales, Louise was so overwhelmed with what was going on, part of it for physical reasons, that we had to have our staff members do a lot of the management and pay them as managers, which is on a non-billable rate. The bottom line was we made very little money in terms of profit on a year where we had massive amounts of sales. So we actually had less income this year than we had last year, even though the sales were higher, which is not a good combination. It really is very, very stressful when you go through something like that. Well, once again, the universe had our back in a way that we didn't expect. Because as it turns out, our income this year was so low that we couldn't qualify for the insurance that we had this past year without paying a massive increase in premiums that we couldn't afford. But we did qualify for a special Connecticut-only program called Husky D that essentially covers all of our insurance needs out of pocket. I mean out of the state's pocket, not out of our pocket. So, and literally, I had signed up for this new package, literally signed up for it the same week we went into the urgent care facility the first time. So we went from a situation where we would have been paying something like $6,000 to $8,000 a year out of pocket for this kind of service to paying nothing out of pocket. I'm blown away. Incredible. I am just plain blown away how the whole thing timed perfectly. Perfectly. I mean, talk about the universe having your back. Oh, my God.
On all sides.
Yeah.
And that is very important. Your storytelling needs to improve because that is really important.
Yeah. I don't even know why I forgot that part, but because I planned actually to tell that part of the story early on. It's like, where did that go? It just disappeared in my mind.
That is awesome, and it's a very relevant piece. But if we look at that using the review mirror model, it is very clear that this all happened as it should have happened. I mean, happened in order even. Now, when you're in the middle of that and you're looking through the front view of the windshield, it's hard to see it. It looks like a lot of stuff.
It's impossible to see. You can't see it at all.
Right, but you look at the rear view mirror and go, well, that worked out amazingly well.
Yes.
On all levels.
Exactly.
And that's the exciting piece. As the new year, that's one of the things that I've learned over the years that just has helped me so much. When I look back through everything, I'm like, oh yeah, everything happened in perfect synchronization. It was like, wow, it's like it flowed like a symphony.
Right.
And then when I look at it from when it's coming at me, I'm like, oh God, it looks like chaos.
Mm-hmm.
It all unfolds. Everything that happened puts you to that next. It just all fell together perfectly.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was falling apart, but it fell together perfectly.
Crazy.
And I'm grateful that you're able to. And once you understand that, and then you quit looking at the oncoming stuff as so chaotic and just sort of laugh at it, realize I'll also go, I have no idea how this is going to work out, but I know it will.
Mm.
And I don't get caught up in how it's going to work out.
It's funny.
Not,
it's funny you should mention that because there was a part of me that was thinking that way, like this is all going to work out. And simultaneously, there's the other part of me that's saying, oh my God, this is all falling apart. I was experiencing both at the same time. Now, that's actually an improvement because I can recall back a few years ago when we had our first really, really crazy story happen. That's when we moved from Virginia to Connecticut. And while in the middle of it, I mean, it was totally chaotic. And after it was all over, we were practically catching our breath like after riding a roller coaster or something like, oh, God, I hope I'd never have to go through anything like that again. But during that period of time, and including in that grand finale when everything worked out, I had no sense that it was all going to work out. I just had, please let it work out. That was the best I could get to. I had no belief that it was actually going to get there. Now I'm experiencing the belief, but I still have some of the detritus of the doubt, right? And I have a feeling where I'm going to is I'm going to, the next time something like this, hopefully nothing this traumatic happens, but the next time something happens, I'm hoping that means at that point I'm going to feel like, oh, this is all going to work out with none of the other fears attached. That's what I'm hoping it's going to.
Well, when you get to that place where you're so confident in the law of attraction, how it's working, and it almost bothers other people
yes.
that just comment it.
Yes. Well, you get that already. I get it already. Yeah.
Well, I do too. Yeah, but I have people's unique views of. Well, Joel, you obviously aren't looking at this in the way that
You should be more upset about this. What's wrong with you?
Right. Yeah. When you really have a life where you know everything is going to work out. This last year has been, an incredible year for me on all levels, and financially it's been one of my better years, if not my best year ever. I won't know. It is my best year ever, so I don't need to see the final total to understand that because I know where I'm at mentally and how I feel. So I once you get past all that worry, what I find it interesting, the things that I worried about 10 years ago, they don't even move the radar anymore. It doesn't
even move the needle.
Affect anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Move the needle is a better one. But I have that belief that's how my life rolls. That is how things go. And once I understand that, then the front view windshield doesn't look near as daunting. And when people tell me, well, here's what I'm going through, and I don't want to act like I don't care or don't have empathy, but I'm like, oh, thank God that happened to you because it's going to make you change things.
Isn't that an interesting statement, too? Because what you described, especially the end, you described perfectly. Like, oh, my God, this thing that's happening to you. You have developed this perspective, a perspective that helps you to understand that everything's going to work all right, and the reaction that people have is, oh, my God, this is a bad thing. Isn't that interesting? And that's very common.
Yeah.
That's the typical way that we humans react to things. And I think there's actually a little lesson there. Like, next time that we have this tendency to want to react like, oh, my God, I can't believe this is happening to you, maybe it's a time to step back and say, well, I'm not going to say something positive if it doesn't look to me like this person is ready to receive something positive. I may just, be mildly sympathetic and just leave it at that. But in the back of my head, I'm going to say to myself, this could actually be a good thing for this person. Let it play out.
Oh, yeah.
Find out. Don't prejudge it. Don't jump to conclusions.
Well, one of the hardest, and I've had to stop doing this because so many people were offended. But when people say, oh, Joel, I lost my job, I'm like, congratulations.
Mm.
And I mean that. I know that, and trust me, I've woken up on a Monday with no job.
Yeah.
really high, you have a really high paying job Sunday and you wake up Monday without a job. That's happened to me.
Yeah.
But I was in the middle of the law of attraction process, and I just laughed at it. It just was like, okay, it turned out to be far easier than I even thought. I wasn't worried about it, but it even became far easier than I realized. And so when everybody I know that is successful or wildly successful or whatever term you want to use had some twist happen where everything fell apart and they had to respond. Everything, very few things are created on a very simple path.
Right.
One of my favorite things is there's a picture of Jeff, was it Bezos, the Amazon guy?
Right.
Yeah. There's a picture of him on a little desk in a garage, and he has a dot matrix printer that's Amazon Incorporated, and it was on his wall. He was trying to develop a platform to sell books on.
Wow.
That's what he was trying to do, day one. And there's a story that goes with that. He has multiple great stories attached to this.
Sure.
And when Amazon started to gain a little traction and get a little bit of attention, there's a point where he did not have the money to continue. He just didn't have it.
Yeah.
And I believe it was his mom or dad or certainly a family member, maybe brother or sister. They took out mortgages on their house.
Wow.
For $200,000.
Oh my God, yeah.
To float him the money to go. Talk about taking a belief in that.
No kidding.
And they were rewarded with, 10,000 shares of Amazon stock.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Which had no value at the time.
Right.
So, when you look at that, and you look at how they almost didn't make it, and I'm sure that everybody was questioning it. I'm sure their financial people said, "You're crazy. This internet thing's going to fall apart. Amazon, nobody's going to buy books online. Nobody cares that much about books." And all these negatives were going on. And, I wouldn't mind the 10,000 shares of Amazon stock.
Especially the early shares before they all split. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I forget what it's worth now. It's $2 billion, I think.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. 10,000.
Crazy.
Yeah. So it's incredible money. But it all came out of that. Nothing was simple. It wasn't easy. It was hard. So when I'm a very big believer that I have reframed my view of struggle, of challenge, of stuff like that in a way that it drives most people crazy. I
crazy.
run toward the struggle.
I mean, the first time you told me about it, I'm thinking, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Yeah. I see value. I value the struggle. Everything that I've had to get in my life, I struggled to get. I fought for it. And I represent struggle as an incredible opportunity. I help people when you view your struggle as like Monday morning. I love Monday morning. I get up, I go, I do. And most of all, I dread Monday. I'm all about that. I'm excited about the new year. All of this stuff that comes along has come from me reframing things. I have this visualization of one of the little placards I have on my office walls: keep your foot on the gas. I don't want to take my foot off the gas. I want to keep going. I take on new challenges, and that's what I have found has been just reframing my perspective of things. Instead of running to avoid struggle, I run toward the struggle, and that's where I find my most satisfaction.
I think there's also a degree of courage in that needs to be recognized. And I love the way that Mike Dooley, in his Notes from the Universe, describes that courage. Now, he doesn't describe it in the terms that you're talking about specifically. He describes it more generally. But he talks about how people on the other side, non-physical beings, are absolutely blown away by the fact that we're willing to dive into this contrast of the physical world and come what may, just live with it and enjoy it and get the most out of it and live it to the hilt and all that kind of thing. And what he's trying to express is that there is a certain degree of courage that we take just by coming here and being alive, just by coming into this life and risking the times when we can be hurt, risking the times when we're going to suffer and so forth, so that we can have this platform from which to spring up to even greater heights. And I think there's some truth to that, actually. I mean, I don't fully understand what the other side is like. Like anybody else, I have the same limitations anyone else has. I know what I've heard. I know what resonates with me deep down and so forth. But I think it's probably true. I think there are a lot of non-physical beings who just aren't really willing to take the leap because they know that you're setting yourself up to deal with all these really difficult, often frightening, terrifying things. And yet we come through them.
Yeah.
We come through them just fine if we have that right mental attitude. And that's the hope. The hope is that we'll maintain that courageous stance and get ourselves through it so that we can have these amazing transpired events, series of transpired events that help us after the fact, and that makes the life really just amazing.
Well, and that's to me, it is one of the statements that I'll often post, and it really hit home. I often heard, the journey is equally as important as the destination, and I've also bought into that. I've even taken it further. I believe that the journey is the destination. I think the journey is the point. I don't think I have a place I'm going. I think it's the journey that matters, and that's exciting to me. I think I'm here on this planet for a journey, a mission, and I wasn't given the instruction. I think it's like, in a sense, a big game. You're placed here, and you don't have an instruction manual. And you got to figure it out, and that's the exciting piece for me. What I was being taught when I was younger. I didn't. Some of it resonated, most of it didn't. And Justin, my son, the other day said something that one of his friends' parents told him that I was a little weird.
Well, we knew that, Joel. There's nothing new in that.
Yeah. And I said, you need to message him immediately and say, he's not a little weird. He's a lot
weird, yes.
And, I said, I'm working too hard to be called a little weird.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, I guess my life would look a little weird to people.
Sure.
Of course, once he did that, the mom found out. She said, no, they didn't want to. No, I don't. I'm serious. I'm not upset. I guess it would look weird from an outside perspective.
Sure.
I love it. Don't worry about it. I did not take it as a slight at all. But it's something that I embrace. I like the fact that my journey is an individual journey.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing. And I've made some colossal mistakes when I mess up in a colossal way.
Yeah, you don't go halfway, do you?
But I also have, but I also have colossal cracks from it as well. And so that's the beauty of what the law of attraction has given us is it isn't that things aren't going to happen. It's we're in charge of the perspective of what happens.
Right. And
then that will bring about more down the road. That's how the response of all this works. And to see it in action with, people I care about, like you and Louise, and just actually see my other friends that have gone through similar things, it just is a reinforcer of just the amazing thing out there. I have no idea how this ends, but it's irrelevant how it ends. It's what's happening right now that I know what I'm attracting, and it's exciting, and like this New Year's coming up, I don't know what's happening, but I guess I feel this every year, but I feel tremendous positive stuff is around the corner.
By the way, I was just realizing there's one tiny piece of information that I forgot to include in the story that I just want to kind of mention in passing. The particular condition that Louise has, they call Graves' disease, named after Dr. Graves. And I just think they really need to change that name. This is not a good name to give to a disease. This is a name that terrifies you just hearing the name. They need a different name besides Graves' disease. Just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, I don't know what. Well, first of all, I think they do tend to name the diseases with the people's names. So. Right. But Graves' disease is one that I don't know what his first name is, but let's call him George. It would be George's disease.
Exactly. Much, much better. Yes.
Anything let's not do the grave thing.
Yeah, really.
But there's so much is in words and interpretations of words and events, and this how you interpret when stuff happens and how you view it, and how you respond to it. That's what you're conditioned to do. That's what your life is about. And when you realize you are not a victim of these things unless you allow yourself to be a victim of these things. And this is the sort of the awakening, the prosperity of life mindset that, you use and I use the term balance off the ground. I think you and Louise can use this Christmas's event as a benchmark for all Christmases. I want them all to be this amazing, and to bring so much to you, because this is a new level. You could either look at the fact she was in the hospital, or you can look at the fact that she had this tremendous healing event.
Right.
And thank God it took place in the hospital, because you wouldn't have known what to do. All this took place with a very established, obviously a great hospital. So
really good.
A wonderful job there.
Yeah.
And so that with all that taking place there, what an amazing event this was. I wanted to go back to the hospital, but if she has this experience, as moving forward has been we don't have to look at it as a negative anymore.
That's right.
This is her regaining her health, and I'm so happy that happened.
No, me too, absolutely. And I agree with you. I could do without the part of, sitting in the emergency room overnight, sleepless, wondering when the hell they're going to get her heartbeat down. I could do without that part, but I would certainly want to retain in my mind the amazing joy that we felt on Christmas Day. I mean, we really felt this was a Christmas miracle. And it was the first time in my life I ever had a Christmas miracle. I was thinking, this is pretty wild. I'm literally, Joel, she woke me up at around 6:30, 7 a.m. She just couldn't contain herself anymore. She had to call me and say, listen, I got to tell you what happened last night. And then after she told me, my task was to go get breakfast, feed the cats, and then get some stuff to take to the hospital so I could spend the time with her until they released her. But as I'm going through my daily routine, I have this thought going on in my mind, and literally I could feel like spurts of emotion bursting out at me, just at random times. So I'd erupt in giggles, or I'd celebrate. Yeah, it just kind of flowed out. There was nothing I could do. It just come out. Well, I could have perhaps packed it down inside, but that would have been a really bad reaction to have. But no, I let it out, and it was like this sporadic explosion that just kept happening every 10 or 15 minutes or so until, for the next 2 or 3 hours until I left to go to the hospital to spend the morning with her. Very, very interesting to go through that. And it reminded me, we've talked a lot about how if you're doing affirmations or you're focusing on what you want, you're building yourself into a really nice feeling place so that you can attract what you want into your life. I actually experienced that without having to even think about it. That's what was happening that morning, Christmas morning. I was having these bursts of emotion that came out. And I milked them. I milked them for all they were worth so I could get that value out of them. And I was mindful enough, we use that term, right, mindful? I was mindful enough to recognize that when I was in that really good feeling place, that was the time to start putting out other things that I was looking for. Like, okay, we got this going, let's get this other thing going as well. Yeah, here we go. Because I'm in the really high-flying state at that point. It was quite an experience to go through that. Because so often we have to effort ourselves there. We're like pushing, like, how the heck do I get to this high feeling place? Well, I was there, and it was just happening. It was like spewing out of me periodically every 15 or 20 minutes or so, and I just rode with it. It was great, and I used it.
Yeah. And the law of attraction responds to emotion, the response to feeling, and when you learn to manipulate those feelings in a positive manner for yourself, you use that. That is what we do the show for, is
exactly
understanding these things are going to be there. If you think and feel about them a certain way, when you look at something that is daunting or you see it overwhelming, then your emotion becomes daunted and overwhelmed, and it doesn't respond in a way that you want it to respond. Or if you look at it like, this isn't an event, or this is something that I got to do. Wherever you're at, the way to make yourself feel to get what you want is sort of the answer. And tuning in that emotion in a right way. You use that feeling, you use that emotion in the manner that it's intended to be used. It's the most valuable, because it's a very intense feeling, and you use it a very good way.
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier that we come into this world without an instruction book, and we have to figure it out for ourselves. And I have to honestly say, I don't know how I could have figured that part out for myself. I'm sure I couldn't have. But I'm very grateful for the fact that I have come into contact with and met so many people who share bits and pieces of me and help me understand how you're supposed to handle this kind of thing. So that when I finally got to a point where I could handle it consciously, I knew what to do. I had the tools to do that. So that's why I was saying to you and to others, thank you for helping me to understand all this stuff, because I finally got there. I finally got to the point of how to use an experience like that. That was great.
And and one of the things that I will say that I'm always amazed about is the people that, I look at the people that come to law of attraction or the mindfulness, the sort of this Buddhist mindset, or whatever term you want to call it. There's sort of an encompassing thing. Now, how many co-hosts do you have now?
10, I think.
Well,
I haven't counted in a while, but I think it's around 10.
Okay, we have 10 people working. Now, I would say probably with those 10 co-hosts, I may be in tune or be on board with 80 or 90% of what they believe. Even within that, we were going to have differences. I've had conversations with co-hosts in the past. I do it differently. I have sort of a hardcore view on certain things that people say, oh, he's a little crazy. But it's okay. It's okay. I don't need to see it the same way. But the core piece of it, we all agree on.
Yeah.
And it's like, Mike Dooley has one version of it, then you have, some of the other guys have a little different version. But at the end of the day, we get to that same place. And that's what matters.
Right.
And like you said, we none of us figure it out totally by ourselves. But if we allow for these bits and pieces, we weren't given an instruction manual. But I do believe people are sent along the way to give us pieces of this knowledge that we put together to derive what we believe and how we go. And that's what's exciting to me. I seek those people out. Mm-hmm. And that's big. And since I've been 12, I've been looking for this group of people that feel that way and was told for years they exist. And now I'm finding them, I'm like, wow, this is impressive to me.
It is more interesting, too, to pursue this stuff as a group, because it becomes like a group treasure hunt in a sense. I feel like that's what we do here on the show. It's a group treasure hunt. And that part is good. I like that part a lot. I look forward to doing more of that.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah. Hey, we got a couple minutes left. I want to make sure I get in the announcements. If you're not yet a subscriber, become one. The instructions are on the homepage, loatoday.net. You'll also find links in most of the places where we post this. But if you don't find it in the description, rather, just go to the homepage and you'll find links there. And once you're a subscriber, make sure that you share the fact so that other people can find us, because as you can tell, we have a different story to tell every single day. And it's really worthwhile to be a subscriber so you get all of the episodes coming right to your smartphone every day. And Joel, for somebody who wants the help of a personal coach, how do they reach out to you again? Give us that contact information.
Joel Elston at Gmail or joelelston.com. Either one works. I would love to hear from you, even feedback. And anything that was offensive to you today, please send it to Walt at
Absolutely. Why accept what you can do, right? Absolutely. I agree.
Exactly.
Oh, my friend, I'm really glad that you're the one I got to tell this story to, because this is the first episode that we actually had planned to do after the Christmas holiday. And since you are the one I've been doing it with the longest, I was really glad I got to tell it to you. So thank you for being my listener today.
It's awesome. You actually made my day. So give Louise my love. I cannot wait to hear the ongoing journey.
And you can count on that. That's going to be there for sure. And so we hope our listeners will join us as well next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.